Okay, so the first thing to do is obviously open InDesign. We then want to go to Create New. Now our options here will automatically boot to recent files, but for the purposes of what you guys want to do, I think it's probably best to go over to Print, just because it makes sense. The options that it gives you in Print are American presets, so I then go View All Presets. You can choose one of these really cool and jazzy templates, but to keep it nice and simple, I'm going to go All Presets and choose A4. We're going to name this Textbook Test. How about Textbook Demo? Now we can change the orientation. We want it landscape or portrait. I'll keep it portrait for now. Click Create, and it gives us our little page. Now, the first question I always get from people is, what are the pink and purple lines? They are essentially the bleed lines. So back in the days when things were printed on web press, they are the things that could be lost when printed, but for the purpose of a digital textbook, don't probably really need to worry about it at all. Now, the first thing that I always teach people to do is to choose a rectangular frame tool and then begin to lay out the way that you want your page to look. Now, if I grab a frame, start right up in the corner, and as I start coming over, it'll give me a little pink indicator line to indicate the center of the page, and it'll do the same thing on the X and Y axis. So that's my first frame. I'm going to lay out a second frame, equal and opposite, down in the bottom right hand side, and I'm going to leave just those two frames for now. Now the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate what these frames are for, but I'm also going to demonstrate another way of placing objects. So we've got our selection tool. I will select that frame, I'll place. Now you can place anything that you want to put in there, any media, any photos, any text, anything like that. So if I say, alright, I want to put in this image, this illustration, and I click open, it goes in. Now, the thing is, that will only show you what is inside that frame. Now, if the image is way too big, which this one is, if I choose the direct selection tool, and I click on it, that little brown box is the size that the image actually is. Now I can start to move that around, and I can crop it and I can move it, but it's only ever going to show me what's inside that frame. I can right click it, I could go to fitting, and I can say fit the content to the frame. However, probably a better way to do it, if I click on the edge, press down and hold shift to constrain the proportions, I can manually move it in, move it to the size that I want, move it in, whatever I want to do. Now, another way of placing objects on there is I could simply open up my file viewer. If I get that and I bring it over here, I now have this image. Now what I can do is I can go click and drag, and I'm resizing it as I go, and whatever I let go at is the size that will appear, and you'll be able to see the entire thing. Next thing that we want to do, I can now say, how about I go, I want to collect more than one image, I want to collect multiple things. I can come back over to my file viewer again. I can say I want this image, and I want this image, and I want this image. I bring them all over. Now what it gives me the option to do, I can start to actually drag these out one at a time. When that one's done, it appears the next one. When that one's done, it gives me the third option, those three images that I picked. Next thing that I can do is I can now say, well, I want this to be some text, so I click on my type tool, click on there. I can now go test, I'm going to highlight and copy that, paste it many times. There's all my text going across the screen, and it'll fill in. Now, if I want to drag out manually a text box, best bet is to probably go into my layers. This background layer that I already have, I'm now going to lock it. I'm going to create another layer that's sitting on top, and I'm going to lay out a text box. You notice how that box is now red, indicating that it's on layer 2, which is a red layer. I can double click on that and change the color of the layer if they all start to get a little bit similar, if you've got lots of layers. If I now say that this is textbook demo, highlight that, I can obviously change the size of my font, make it something nice and large. If I want it even bigger, we run out at 72 points, but I can just click on there and I can change that to be 150, enter. It'll fit in there. Now the thing is, the nice, cheap and cheerful hack is, if you want to make this text stand out, you can double click on there and then you can highlight the text and just give it this little white stroke, little white outline. Computer's dying. Now the way that looks, by comparison, is pretty cool. Now, the things that this can do that other things can't do so easily is it can do things that allow you to turn it into an interactive ebook or an interactive textbook. So if I come down here to ePub interactivity, if you can't see it, go up to window and you go to interactive, and these are the things we want to be able to see. Things like animations. If I want to be able to see animations and I want to animate that frame, I click that frame, it tells me that it's called textbook, indicated by the text in the box. I can choose a preset animation, so say I want it to appear, and then I say, well, what's that going to look like? So I go ePub interactivity, I click play, that's what it's going to look like, it's just going to appear. Let's make this a little bit bigger, just grab the edge of that, let's drag this out quite a bit bigger, click play, it appears, probably a bit boring. Let's go back to animation. Let's say we want it to maybe fly in from the left. Now what's that going to look like? ePub interactivity, click play, upon load, in it comes. That's okay. Now, what if I don't want it to happen on page load? If I want it to happen on page click, if, for example, just change all those parts in the animation right there. Now if I go over here again to my animations and I say, well, I like it coming in from the left, but I want to modify where it comes from, all you do is you choose your direct selection tool, click on this little green line which indicates where it goes from and to, and I can change that. So say I want it to go from up there to down there. I now come back to my ePub interactivity, my preview window, click play. What's it going to look like now? Yeah, if you're happy with it, away we go. Now, what about when you're done? What do you want to do with it after that? You then say, okay, fine. We go File, Export, and we choose what we want it to be. ePub fixed layout, interactive PDF, HTML for websites, pick whatever you want it to be, Flash player, anything you want it. ePub interactivity reflowable is probably the most common one that I use, because that means it'll reflow to different size screens. When you're happy, just decide where you want it to go and click save. So I'm going to save it to my desktop, click save, OK. When I come back down to my desktop, see what this looks like. Oh, already bumped. There it goes. Here it goes. What does this look like? Next page. And away we go. Page 1, page 2. Because that's reflowable. Now, if I go to ePub fixed layout, look at the difference. Export, ePub fixed layout. Oh, hang on. Cancel. Save. Okay. Now what's this going to look like? Pretty cool.